up and tell the truth of what it is and how it transforms people. It's not what we were taught by the government, it's the real thing. And now it's time to come out of the closet. Everybody's coming out of the closet, right?
And yet we continued to kind of practice and, of course, believe in what we were doing. And we still take LSD as a spiritual means of spiritual discovery, spiritual practice. And so now we're talking about it. It's in our old age. If we don't do it now, the story won't get told. It's a beautiful story, and it affected the world. So we're proud to share it with those people who are interested.
What we do in film is to entertain, and I think that was ultimately it, is to really tell a story that was going to entertain someone from start to finish. I think too often we sit in film, be it surf film, be it any kind of film, and people drift away. The format's changed these days. It's short form, it's quick form. People's attention spans are a lot shorter. So to me, the critical thing and the guiding light for me was really to show something that would just entertain people for 50 minutes and guide them through an awesome story.
Going to the project, when I heard the stories and knew the stories a little bit, I wanted to uncover this interesting part of Orange County history that had never really been told or never really been explored. And I got met with such resistance. Nobody wanted to talk. People were almost still whispering about the Brotherhood. I talked to Art about 10 years ago when I started this project. Nobody really wanted to talk, and the rock in the shoe became getting the story told and out there and getting Mike and Carol. And it took 7 years. They said no from the very beginning. So I started with everybody around them, and I did 25 interviews with anybody who would talk to me. And then after 7 years, I went to Mike and Carol. I said, look, I've got this other film. I've got this film almost finished on the Brotherhood story, but the Brotherhood story is really your story. This should be your story. And said I'd be willing to hit the reset button and start over if you say yes. And that's what we did about 3.5 years ago.
And I found the story of Bunker Spreckles, chronologically, and what he might have tried to do, and for me to find what I wanted to tell as a filmmaker using Bunker Spreckles' life, that took me, another several years. And so that I think Shoe was the problem than the Rock. I think Rock was quite obvious, but I feel like after over a decade, I feel like both Shoe and the Rock is somewhat ready. But yeah, that was my situation.
Peter, your film drifts into fiction. Can you talk about that?
The reason why I did that was back to that initial point of just trying to teach myself as a filmmaker. I'd only ever done running gun stuff, I'd done documentary stuff, and it was just an attempt to delve into that world, because I think that's the evolution of where I would like to see my filmmaking going, is more into a fiction world and telling stories and coming up with stories and writing, because I really enjoy that process of it. And this was our attempt to do it, and we did it with surfers, and surfers at best aren't great actors, but they pulled it off, and it was really exciting. And it was how far do you push it? How far do you push the fiction? How far do you push the acting for it to be still cool, as opposed to being cheesy? And I think we've all seen lots of attempts in the surfing world where guys have tried to act and stuff, and it's never come across well. So we're just intrigued to see how the guys receive it now. So yeah.
And I was lucky enough to experience it. Started in 1969 and carried on up until 77 when he disappeared. And I was lucky enough to work with Craig putting this thing together, and it shows the transition of average, everyday surfer, but a really good surfer that inherits money and goes off the extreme like nobody had seen at that time and place in surfing history. And he became quite a teacher of things, what not to do, and, what to do. You learned a lot from him. And I think Craig shared a lot of time with him when afterwards I took off after a trip to South Africa, spending 3 months with him on the road and crashing Mercedes and getting arrested and shooting guns in South Africa where we weren't supposed to, and just doing everything that you could get away with. That's what he was up to. Diamond smuggling, supposedly.